Welcome to the Portraits Whisper, where our guest storytellers are portraits, paintings, and artworks. Here, every canvas breathes and every brushstroke hides a story waiting to be told. Tonight's whisper is from our guest Death and the Miser, an oil on copper painting created by the Flemish artist Francken circa 1630. When death comes fiddling at your door, no coin can buy silence, and no wish can buy time. A memento mori to remind us of our own mortality. The miser's room was a monument to his own greed, a dusty mausoleum of his life's accumulation. Outside, the eerie light of an autumn evening filtered through barred windows, casting long, shivering shadows across the vaulted ceiling. The air, thick with the scent of age and dust, was filled with a high, keening sound. It was the sound of a fiddle, but not one played for dancing or merriment, but rather a cold, discordant music that scraped at the frayed edges of the miser's soul. The miser, gout-ridden and wheezing, sat at a cluttered table surrounded by his treasures, gold coins, glittering jewels, and ledgers detailing every last debt owed to him. For years he had built this shrine to his own success, convinced that wealth was an armor against all of life's misfortunes. Now, as the last grains of sand fell on the hourglasses at his feet, he realized his error. With one bony foot standing on the empty hourglass, the skeletal figure of death grinned, sawing mercilessly on his violin. "You can't," the miser rasped. "You can't." His voice a dry rustle of dead leaves. He gestured toward his swollen, bandaged leg, a pitiful excuse. "I can't dance." Death, however, did not need a partner. His music was the dance macabre itself, a dance of judgment that all must join. The spectral notes vibrated through the room, stirring up ghosts from the miser's past. In the room beyond, visible through the arched doorway, a phantom play was unfolding. There, a younger, more vigorous version of the miser stood face to face with death, who extended a rolled-up document. The young miser's face was a mask of pleading, his hands outstretched in supplication. He was bargaining, trading his soul for a lifetime of riches, a spectral pact, sealed not with ink, but with the cold, unseen promise of damnation. As the elder miser watched this scene, a cold dread coiled in his gut. The spectral echo of his younger self's desperation was a ghostly pallor on the autumn air, mingling with the chilling fiddle music. Up on the rib of the groin vault ceiling, a cherub's face, carved in plaster, watched the scene with hollowed-out, sorrowful eyes. This innocent figure seemed to weep dust for the soul being lost below. The paintings on the wall, depictions of biblical tales and allegories, seemed to shift and writhe in the deepening shadows. One, a vibrant scene of a hero's triumph, now seemed faded and mockingly dull. Another, a depiction of a saint's quiet contemplation, was obscured by a veil of darkness. They were mute witnesses to the vanity of earthly pursuits. "Your time is up," Death rasped, his bow moving faster, the music a dizzying whirlwind of sound. He pointed a long, bony finger at the overflowing chest and the scattered coins, a final indictment of a life spent in avarice. The miser's gaze, however, was no longer on his treasures. It was fixed on the convex mirror hanging below the ceiling, a unique feature of his richly decorated room. In its warped reflection, he saw not only his own face, distorted and terrified, but also the grinning skull of death peering over his shoulder. And beyond, reflected from the room behind, was a ghostly image of the young miser, still pleading, still bargaining, trapped forever in the mirror instant of his tragic choice. As death's fiddle music reached a fever pitch, the room was filled with the rustling of unseen things. It was the ghosts of the miser's victims, the debtors he had ruined, The families he had displaced, their spectral forms barely visible in the deepening gloom, reached out with cold, ethereal hands toward the gold he had hoarded. The jewels on his table seemed to dim, the coins to tarnish, as if touched by a terrible cold. Finally, the music stopped. The hourglass was completely empty. A profound, hollow silence filled the room. The miser, his mouth agape, looked from his now diminished treasures to the skeletal figure before him. The last desperate dance had concluded, and his final debt had come due. You have been listening to The Portraits Whisper on Storylink Radio, where every canvas has a story to tell. Be sure to subscribe and listen for our next guest, for the gallery never sleeps, and another canvas is already waiting to whisper.